There will be times in your life when no one claps for you, no one checks on you, no one believes in you, and you'll start to wonder, why am I even doing this? That's the moment most people quit. They give up not because they lack talent, but because they lack support. But if you want to get ahead, truly ahead, you have to stop waiting for someone to show up and save you, because no one is coming. The truth is, progress doesn't happen when the world believes in you. It happens when you decide to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. When you stop begging for validation and start demanding discipline from yourself. When I say no one is there for you, I don't mean that to discourage you. I say it because that's the reality that separates the strong from the average. It's easy to keep going when people cheer for you. But the real test is when the room goes silent and you keep moving anyway. When you wake up early and no one notices. When you sacrifice comfort and no one cares. When you put in the effort and no one says thank you. That's when you're building something real, a backbone. See, the people who get ahead are not the most gifted. They're the ones who can keep going in isolation. They turn loneliness into focus. They turn rejection into energy. They use the silence as motivation to become so good that eventually no one can ignore them. So how do you get ahead when no one is there for you? You do 3 things. First, you take ownership. Stop waiting for someone to hand you an opportunity. If the door doesn't open, build your own. You become so prepared, so skilled, that opportunity can't overlook you. Second, you master your emotions. Pain, disappointment, and loneliness are not your enemies. They're your training. Every moment you feel like giving up is a chance to sharpen your mind. Control your emotions before they control you. Third, you play the long game. Everyone wants results now, but success rewards those who outlast. You keep showing up. You keep improving. You keep building when no one sees it. Because here's the truth. At some point, your consistency will speak louder than their silence. Your results will make the noise that applause never could. So don't wait for support. Don't wait for recognition. Don't wait for the world to understand you. Keep moving forward. Keep your vision clear. And one day, when everyone finally notices what you've built, you'll realize you never needed them in the first place. That's how you get ahead when no one is there for you. You do it alone. You do it strong. And you do it until the world has no choice but to see you. When you find yourself alone, surrounded by silence instead of support, that is not a sign that you've failed. It's a signal that you've entered the phase of growth most people never reach. Isolation isn't punishment, it's preparation. When you're isolated, you are forced to meet yourself without distraction, without noise, without applause. And that is where real strength is built. Because when no one is watching, the only thing that drives you is your own discipline. There's no external validation, no crowd to motivate you, no audience to impress. It's just you, your effort, and your willpower. In those moments, isolation becomes your training ground. It's where you learn who you really are without the mask of expectations or the comfort of encouragement. Most people hate being alone because it exposes the truth. They realize how much of their identity depends on other people's opinions. But when you embrace isolation, you strip away all the illusions. You stop performing for approval and you start performing for progress. When you train in silence, something shifts inside you. You stop needing validation and you start valuing growth. You begin to understand that solitude isn't empty. It's full of space for development. It gives you time to think, to plan, to improve, to evolve. It gives you the opportunity to hear your own voice clearly, not drowned by the noise of others. That's when clarity happens. That's when you realize what truly matters. Think about the people who reach the top of their fields, the athletes, the entrepreneurs, the leaders. Behind every great moment of victory is a long stretch of invisible effort. Hours, days, years of working alone while others were sleeping, relaxing, or doubting them. They trained when no one was cheering. They studied when no one believed. They sacrificed comfort for preparation. That's the power of isolation. It sharpens you when the world isn't looking. Isolation teaches you to be resourceful. When no one is there to push you, you learn to push yourself. When no one is there to guide you, you learn to trust your own instincts. You start depending less on others and more on your ability to figure things out. That independence becomes your competitive advantage, because when everyone else is waiting for motivation or direction, you're already moving forward, fueled by self-drive. It's in solitude that you learn to silence self-doubt. When you're constantly surrounded by others, you absorb their fears, their limitations, their distractions. But when you're alone, you can face your own thoughts without interference. You can confront your insecurities head on and dismantle them piece by piece. You stop seeking reassurance and start building resilience. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start saying, "Watch me." Isolation also builds focus. When you're disconnected from outside noise, your attention sharpens. You start noticing the details others miss. You become intentional with your time. You stop chasing everything that looks good and start pursuing what's truly meaningful. Every moment of silence becomes an investment in precision. Every hour alone becomes a brick in the foundation of your excellence. And make no mistake, isolation isn't easy. It can feel uncomfortable. It can feel heavy. It can make you question everything. But that discomfort is the price of transformation. Growth never happens in comfort zones. It happens in solitude, in discipline, in repetition. When you're working on your dreams and no one seems to care, remind yourself that this is the part where most people quit. And because you're not quitting, you're already different. You're already separating yourself from the crowd. People often confuse loneliness with isolation. Loneliness drains you because it's waiting for someone to fill a void. Isolation strengthens you because it's learning how to fill that void yourself. The more comfortable you become with your own company, the more unstoppable you become, because then your energy no longer depends on anyone else. You control your peace, your motivation, your direction. When you embrace isolation as training, you stop taking it personally. You stop thinking, "No one cares about me," and start realizing, "This is where I build myself." You stop chasing connection for comfort and start using solitude for construction. You see every quiet night, every ignored message, every moment of doubt as a rep in the gym of mental toughness. You begin to understand that you are not being abandoned. You are being refined. In isolation, your values get tested. Do you still show up when no one acknowledges it? Do you still work when no one is watching? Do you still hold yourself accountable when no one will know if you slack off? These questions reveal your character, because anyone can work hard when the spotlight is on, but it takes something rare to keep grinding when it feels like no one sees your effort. That something is internal strength, and it's born in isolation. When you learn to train in silence, you stop needing the world to motivate you. You become self-generating. Your progress becomes personal, not performative. You start doing things because they align with your purpose, not because they'll earn you praise. And that's when your work starts to compound. Every hour of focus adds up. Every small effort multiplies. The world might not notice for a long time, but one day they will. And when they do, it'll look like overnight success. But you'll know it wasn't overnight. It was built in the quiet, in the hours no one talks about, in the isolation that everyone avoids. You can't master anything in the presence of distraction. You can't develop deep strength when you're constantly surrounded by noise. The greatest power you can cultivate is the ability to work alone with conviction. Because if you can thrive without an audience, you'll dominate when one appears. That's the difference between people who rely on motivation and those who rely on mastery. Motivation fades. Mastery endures. Isolation, when embraced correctly, becomes your secret weapon. It separates you from the ones who need validation to move. It makes you resilient to criticism because you no longer depend on approval. It builds self-trust because you've proven to yourself that you can stand alone. And once you learn to stand alone, you'll never fear standing out. Mastering your emotions is one of the hardest things you will ever do, but it is also one of the most powerful. The moment you learn to control how you respond instead of reacting to everything around you, you become untouchable. Most people are ruled by their emotions. They get angry and lose focus. They get hurt and stop trying. They get jealous and start comparing. But when you train your emotions instead of being trained by them, you begin to operate from strength, not impulse. You stop being dragged by temporary feelings and start being led by purpose. Emotions are not the enemy. They are signals. They tell you what's happening inside, but they are not instructions. Anger might tell you something feels unfair, but that doesn't mean you should explode. Fear might tell you something feels uncertain, but that doesn't mean you should run. Sadness might tell you that something matters, but it doesn't mean you should stay stuck in it. The key is learning to listen to your emotions without letting them control your actions. That is emotional mastery. People often say they lost control because someone pushed their buttons. But the truth is, those buttons only work if you haven't done the inner work to disconnect them. When someone can easily make you angry, anxious, or insecure, they own your peace. They become your master. Every time you react impulsively, you hand over your power. Mastery is about taking that power back. It's deciding that no one and nothing can make you break your focus or lower your standard. It's learning to be calm in chaos, steady in storms, and rational in moments where others lose their minds. When you master your emotions, you stop letting temporary feelings destroy permanent goals. You don't quit because it's hard. You don't lash out because you're frustrated. You don't lose confidence because someone criticizes you. You understand that emotions are waves. They rise and fall, but your discipline must remain constant. Every successful person you've ever admired learned to act according to values, not moods. They do what needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. That's how they keep winning while everyone else keeps hesitating. There will be days when you wake up tired, uninspired, or full of doubt. You'll feel like the effort isn't paying off. Like no one notices your sacrifices, like you're giving everything and getting nothing back. In those moments, your emotions will try to convince you to stop, but that's exactly when you must not listen. Because emotion-driven decisions are short-term decisions, and short-term decisions sabotage long-term success. When you feel like quitting, that's when you must practice emotional control the most. You don't respond to emotion with reaction. You respond with discipline. Emotional mastery also means understanding the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is immediate. It's driven by ego and impulse. Responding is deliberate. It's guided by logic and purpose. When someone criticizes you, a reaction wants to defend, argue, or prove something. But a response chooses to listen, learn, or move on with dignity. The difference between those two paths determines how far you'll go. People who react stay trapped in cycles of conflict and frustration. People who respond move forward with clarity and power. Another part of mastering your emotions is learning not to take everything personally. Most of what people do or say is a reflection of their own mindset, not yours. When someone disrespects you, it says more about their character than your worth. When life feels unfair, it's not always punishment. It's a test of your patience, your adaptability, and your resilience. When you stop personalizing every challenge, you free yourself from unnecessary pain. You begin to see situations for what they are, not how they make you feel. Mastery also means learning to regulate yourself in moments of stress. You can't think clearly when your emotions are loud. You can't make smart choices when you're drowning in frustration. That's why emotional control is essential for leadership, for growth, for success in anything. You have to build the ability to pause, breathe, and assess before acting. That pause is where maturity lives. That pause is what separates the impulsive from the intentional. It's easy to let emotions rule when everything is falling apart. It's easy to get discouraged, to overreact, to let fear paralyze you. But emotional mastery means standing firm in chaos. It means understanding that your reaction determines your outcome. You can't control every situation, but you can always control your response. That's where your true power lies. Because if the world can't make you lose your center, it can't control your direction. Mastering emotions isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about balance. You still feel, but you don't let those feelings steer the wheel. You acknowledge them, you process them, but then you decide your next move with reason, not emotion. It's emotional intelligence at work, knowing how to express feelings in a way that serves your growth, not sabotages it. When you understand yourself deeply, you stop overreacting to others. You start moving through life with calm precision instead of chaotic reaction. Fear will always try to whisper in your ear. Doubt will always try to slow you down. Anger will always try to take over when things go wrong. But when you've practiced emotional control, you recognize those feelings for what they are, temporary visitors. They come and go, but they don't get to stay. You acknowledge them and keep moving. That's how you keep momentum. That's how you stay consistent when others fall apart. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who never feel pain. They are the ones who don't let pain dictate their actions. They have trained their emotions like muscles. They've practiced calmness until it became instinct. They've learned to stay steady when everything else is falling apart. They don't waste energy reacting to small things because they're focused on the big picture. They've learned that emotion is information, not identity. Emotional mastery is what allows you to stay humble in success and resilient in failure. When things go right, you don't get arrogant. When things go wrong, you don't get defeated. You stay balanced, consistent, focused, because you know emotions are temporary, but your mission is not. You know the world will try to test your patience, your confidence, your peace, but it can only win if you let it. The moment you stop giving your emotions the power to control your actions, you step into real freedom. Consistency is what separates those who dream from those who achieve. Everyone wants results, but very few are willing to show up every single day, especially when progress feels invisible. The truth is, greatness is not built in one big moment. It's built in thousands of quiet repetitions. The early mornings, the long nights, the sacrifices no one sees. Consistency is what turns effort into excellence and persistence into power. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something purposefully over and over again until it becomes second nature. When you decide to be consistent, you decide to play the long game. That means you stop chasing motivation and start relying on discipline. Motivation is a spark. It feels good. It excites you, but it fades quickly. Discipline, on the other hand, is a system. It's what keeps you moving even when the excitement is gone. Consistency is about showing up on the days you don't feel like it, on the days when you question yourself, on the days when it feels like no one cares. Those are the days that build you, because success doesn't come to the most talented or the most passionate. It comes to the most consistent. When you stay consistent long enough, results start to appear quietly. They don't announce themselves. They show up slowly through growth that only you can see at first. A little more focus, a little more strength, a little more clarity. Over time, those small improvements compound into something unshakable. But most people never reach that point because they give up too early. They expect instant validation, and when they don't get it, they stop. Consistency requires patience. It requires faith that your work is adding up even when you can't see it yet. Every day you show up, you're not just building skill, you're building identity. You're telling yourself, I'm someone who follows through. Every workout, every page written, every hour spent learning, it's not just what you're doing, it's who you're becoming. That's why consistency matters more than intensity. Anyone can go hard for a week. Few can go steady for a year. It's the small, repeated actions that define you far more than the occasional bursts of effort. Consistency also means staying committed when the results aren't visible. The world has conditioned us to expect quick rewards. We want fast progress, fast feedback, fast success. But real growth is slow. It's often silent. You don't plant a seed and check the soil every 5 minutes to see if it's growing. You water it, you nurture it, you trust the process. The same applies to your goals. You can't rush mastery. You can't force momentum. You earn it through repetition, persistence, and time. The people who get ahead are not necessarily more gifted. They're simply more consistent. They keep showing up after others have stopped. They understand that progress is rarely dramatic. It's boring sometimes. It's repetitive. It's doing the same thing with intention, even when it feels like nothing is changing. But that repetition is what sharpens you. It's what creates skill, confidence, and control. Every time you repeat a process, you improve the details. Every time you practice, you learn something new about your limits. Over time, consistency turns average into exceptional. There will always be distractions trying to pull you away from consistency. The noise of comparison, the temptation of shortcuts, the impatience of slow progress. That's why consistency is a choice you must make daily. It's deciding to show up for your future self, even when your present self is tired. It's refusing to let comfort win. It's keeping your promise to your goals when no one is holding you accountable. Because the truth is, consistency is not about external pressure. It's about internal commitment. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means persistence. You will make mistakes. You will fail. You will have days when you're off track. But consistency means getting back up and returning to the path. It means forgiving yourself for the slip, but never excusing it. It means understanding that failure is part of the process, not the end of it. Every stumble teaches you something, and every comeback strengthens you. The more you repeat this cycle, the more resilient you become. Over time, consistency creates a rhythm, a flow where your actions and mindset align. You stop forcing effort because it becomes who you are. You don't have to convince yourself to do the work anymore. It's part of your routine, part of your identity. That's when growth becomes unstoppable, because once consistency becomes your habit, success becomes your consequence. Consistency also demands patience with yourself. You won't always feel inspired, and that's okay. You won't always perform at your best, and that's okay too. What matters is that you don't stop. The key is to keep showing up at your own pace, even if that pace feels slow. because slow progress is still progress. Every step forward, no matter how small, moves you closer to where you want to be. People underestimate how much consistent effort over time can change everything. A single drop of water seems weak, but over time, it carves through stone. That's what your effort does when you keep showing up. The reason consistency is so powerful is because it builds trust in yourself. When you consistently follow through on your own promises, your confidence grows. You no longer rely on motivation or external validation because you know you can depend on your own discipline. You start to realize that you are capable of more than you thought. That self-trust becomes the foundation for every new challenge you face. You stop doubting your ability to handle the hard things because you've proven it to yourself through consistent effort. The world may not reward you immediately, but consistency is like compound interest. The payoff multiplies with time. The results may start small, but eventually they accelerate. The skills you've built, the habits you've formed, the discipline you've developed, they all converge to create momentum that becomes unstoppable. And when that momentum comes, it feels effortless because you've already done the hard part. The hard part was staying consistent when nothing seemed to be working. The hard part was trusting the process when no one believed in it. Consistency doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It just builds quietly, patiently, relentlessly. And one day, it shows its results in ways that shock everyone who wasn't paying attention. But for you, it won't be a surprise. You'll know it was earned through every unseen effort, every late night, every disciplined choice. You'll know that while others were waiting for the perfect moment, you were busy building it one consistent step at a time.